You ever get the feeling that someone's watching you? Not in a paranoid, aliens have bugged my toothbrush way, but in a quiet, nosy, suburban kind of way. That was my life the moment I moved into this so-called, prestigious, HOA-run neighborhood. I was just trying to live my life, man. I work from home, keep to myself, mow my lawn every Saturday like clockwork, and don't throw wild parties or blast music at 2 a.m. But apparently, that wasn't enough. No, what really ticked off the HOA wasn't anything I did. It was what I drove. A 1998 Toyota 4Runner. Burgundy. Bit of rust on the wheel wells. Front bumper had a little dent from a fender bender 3 years ago. But it ran like a dream, had 250,000 miles of history, and more personality than half the people on my street. That SUV had been with me through college, road trips, breakups, late-night food runs, you name it. But to the HOA? It was an eyesore. It started with a letter. A neatly folded envelope tucked into my mailbox, printed on that crisp ivory paper they love using for their passive-aggressive messages. The heading read, "Violation Notice, Vehicle Appearance." They claimed my SUV negatively impacted the visual harmony of the neighborhood. I stared at those words for a good 5 minutes, like I was trying to translate ancient Latin. Visual harmony? Are we living in an art gallery or a neighborhood? I tossed the letter aside, figuring it was just one of those dumb warnings they throw around to feel important. I mean, come on, if they had a real issue, surely they'd talk to me first, right? Wrong. A week later, I got another notice. This time it was a second warning, and they threw in a picture of my SUV like it was a criminal suspect. They circled the dent and the rust with a red marker like they were building a case for the FBI. Still, I didn't think they'd go through with anything serious. I wasn't parked on the lawn. I wasn't blocking anyone's driveway. My tags were current, my insurance was valid, and I parked in front of my own house. My house, mind you, not theirs. But apparently that didn't matter. Next, they sent me a fine. $150 for non-compliance with aesthetic standards. I nearly choked on my coffee when I read that. What aesthetic standards? We had houses painted puke green, a neighbor who still had Christmas lights up in July, and another guy who left his trash cans on the curb for 3 days straight every week. But I'm the problem? I tried reaching out to the HOA board, which was a circus all on its own. No one answered their phones. Emails were met with canned responses. When I finally caught one of the board members at the community pool, she gave me the fakest smile I've ever seen and said, "We just want the neighborhood to look its best." I wanted to scream. My car wasn't falling apart. It wasn't leaking oil or stacked up on cinder blocks. It was just old. That's it. I started parking it in my driveway just to avoid more letters, but nope, that wasn't good enough either. Apparently, anything in public view was subject to HOA beautification policies. I swear they make this stuff up as they go. The final straw was when I overheard Mr. Kensington, yeah, the self-appointed HOA enforcer, talking to another neighbor while walking his poodle. "She just refuses to get a new car," he said loud enough for me to hear from my porch. "If she cared about the community, she'd invest in something respectable." It's embarrassing. Respectable. That word lit a fire in me. What does a guy walking a dog in a sweater vest know about respect? I realized then that this wasn't about my car. It was about control. The HOA needed to feel powerful, to micromanage every detail of everyone's lives because, frankly, they had nothing better to do. And I was the easy target. The guy with the beat-up SUV and no wife or kids for them to guilt trip. So, I did what any reasonable person would do. I washed the car. I scrubbed it until it shined. I vacuumed the inside, polished the dashboard, even threw in a new air freshener, pine-scented, because why not? Then I parked it right back where it had always been, in front of my house. On the street. Fully legal. Fully mine. 2 days later, I found another letter in my mailbox. This one wasn't a notice. It was a warning. If I didn't remove the vehicle within 72 hours, the HOA reserved the right to take action, in accordance with neighborhood bylaws. And you know what? That's when I knew they were gonna do it. They were actually going to tow my car. I came home from a quick grocery run, just 30 minutes out. That's it. I grabbed some eggs, a loaf of bread, and a six-pack. I even remember thinking, hey, it's a good day. Sun's out, fridge is stocked, and the HOA hasn't sent a letter in 2 whole days. Maybe they've finally backed off. I turned onto my street, same as always. Then I saw it. Or rather, I didn't see it. My SUV was gone. I blinked. Slammed on the brakes. Looked again. My driveway was empty. The spot in front of my house, my usual spot, was just bare pavement. No skid marks, no glass, no signs of a break-in. Just gone. At first, I honestly thought it had been stolen. My heart was in my throat. I threw the car in park, jumped out, and paced in circles, patting down my pockets like I had the keys to a solution in there. I called the non-emergency police line, stammered through a report, and gave them all the details. That's when the dispatcher dropped the bomb. Sir, your vehicle was reported as towed. Not stolen. I froze. Towed? By who? She checked. It looks like it was removed under request by your neighborhood's Homeowners Association. I swear I saw red. Literal, actual red. The kind of fury that simmers in your gut, bubbling just under the surface like a volcano about to blow. They really did it. They towed my car without so much as a knock on my door, a call, or even a third warning. I was still within their 72-hour notice window. It hadn't even been 2 full days since I got that letter. I sped to the HOA office. It's not even a real office, by the way, just a trailer parked at the back of the clubhouse, pretending to be official. I parked sideways across 2 spots, stormed up to the door, and yanked it open. Behind the front desk was Cheryl, the queen of fake smiles. Always dressed like she's running for PTA president, typing like she's solving world peace with every keystroke. Hi there, she chirped, not even looking up. How can I? You towed my car. I cut in. Where is it? She blinked and tilted her head like I was speaking in Morse code. Oh, that was your vehicle? Yes. The SUV you've been writing me about for weeks? The one that was legally parked in front of my own house? Yeah, that one. She glanced at a folder, barely hiding her smug expression. It was removed under Article 4, Section 6B. Non-compliant vehicles are subject to relocation if they aren't resolved after final notice. There was no final notice. I snapped. You said 72 hours? That was 2 days ago. She gave a little shrug. The board felt immediate action was necessary. You have the right to appeal the fine and request a hearing within 14 business days. Oh, I was fuming. You didn't just tow my car, I said, stepping forward. You towed a part of my life. That car has been with me for over a decade. You don't get to erase that with a phone call and a tow truck. Her eyes narrowed, and the smile disappeared. Sir, if you continue to raise your voice, I'll have to ask you to leave. That was it. I walked out before I said something I'd regret, but my mind was racing. The injustice, the nerve, the complete disregard for any human decency. They didn't care about rules, they cared about control. They wanted to make an example of me. I found the impound yard where my car had been taken, thanks to a note scrawled on the back of the HOA's latest letter. $385 in towing and storage fees. They wouldn't release it without ID, insurance proof, registration, and a payment in full. No payment plan, no warning. Pay or walk. I stood in front of the chain-link fence, staring at my poor 4Runner like it was locked up in a prison yard. Dirty, windows streaked, a bright orange sticker slapped on the windshield. I could have sworn it looked sad. And then, this part gets me every time, I saw the tow slip taped to the window. The reason for removal? Community visual violation. Deemed visually disruptive by HOA board. Visually disruptive. What does that even mean? It's not a horror movie. It's a damn SUV. A little aged, a little rough around the edges, but mine. Bought with my money, maintained with my hands, and parked where it belonged. I paid the fee, reluctantly. They had me cornered. I needed the car to work, to live, to function. But that's when something inside me shifted. It wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about principle. They thought they could bully me. They thought I'd tuck my tail and fade into the background like most folks do when the HOA flexes its tiny little muscles. But not me. No, I was going to fight back. I was going to hit them where it hurt, not physically, but legally. Strategically. Creatively. They towed my car? I was going to tow their entire office. After I paid to get my SUV out of impound, I parked it right back in my driveway, proudly. I didn't wash it this time. I didn't polish it or tuck it away like a secret. Nope. I let it sit there in all its dented, dusty glory like a middle finger to the HOA. And while it sat there, I got to work. Because if they thought I was just going to let this go, they really didn't know me at all. At first, I considered suing. I even scheduled a consultation with a local attorney. He looked over my documents, the letters, the timing of the notices, the towing slip, and told me something that made my blood boil all over again. They jumped the gun, he said, flipping through the HOA's bylaws. You're right. They were supposed to wait the full 72 hours after the final notice. They acted early. That's a violation. I leaned in. So I have a case? He shrugged. Technically, yes. But realistically? You're looking at months of hearings, legal fees, back and forths, and even if you win, they might only owe you the tow fee and a small damages check. That's when it hit me. I didn't want money. I wanted justice. I wanted them to feel the same kind of helplessness I felt standing at that impound lot, looking at my SUV like it was an abandoned dog behind bars. And that's when the idea started to take shape. I did some digging, started asking around. Turns out, the HOA's office, that little trailer behind the clubhouse they act like is the Pentagon, wasn't technically a permanent structure. It was a leased mobile unit, delivered and installed on a concrete pad about 5 years ago. Even better? It didn't have a permanent foundation. No plumbing. No hardwired power. Just a temporary building connected with flexible lines and set up under a temporary use agreement with the county. I couldn't believe it. They had towed my car because it ruined the neighborhood's appearance, while their entire office was a glorified trailer with peeling siding and a janky wooden ramp that wobbled every time someone walked on it. And they had the nerve to call me disruptive? That's when I made the call. A friend of mine, Danny, runs a towing company just outside town. We went to high school together, and though we hadn't talked much in recent years, I knew he had a reputation for getting things done, quietly. I invited him over for a beer and told him everything. At first, he thought I was joking. You want to tow what? He laughed. The HOA's office. I said, dead serious. Legally. Safely. Cleanly. But I want it gone. Just like they did to me. He raised an eyebrow. You got permission? I pulled out a stack of paperwork I'd already started putting together. See, here's the beautiful part. Because the trailer wasn't on a permanent foundation and had technically overstayed its original zoning permit, I had every right to report it as a code violation. And once I did, the county sent a notice, not to remove the trailer immediately, but to refile for a new temporary use permit. Which, by the way, they hadn't done in years. Danny flipped through the documents, then let out a long whistle. Damn. You really did your homework. Oh, I'm not done. I grinned. I filed a formal towing request, citing unauthorized placement of a temporary structure on community land, using the same wording the HOA had used to justify towing my SUV. I even added photos of the cracked siding and sagging roofline, calling it an aesthetic disruption to the neighborhood's visual harmony. Poetic, right? Danny agreed to do the tow. And just to be clear, we weren't talking about dragging the thing off with chains in the middle of the night. This was going to be a full, legit operation. Permits. Paperwork. County sign-off. A flatbed rig. Everything by the book. I wanted it to be loud, but legal. And then, the day came. It was a Thursday morning. Sunny. Calm. One of those days where the air feels too quiet, like something's about to go down. I was sitting on my porch with a coffee when I heard the low rumble of a diesel engine pulling onto the clubhouse lot. There it was. Danny's crew arrived with a heavy-duty flatbed and a support truck. They backed up to the trailer, lowered the platform, and started securing the structure like it was just another piece of cargo. At first, no one noticed. Then Cheryl stepped out of the trailer with a coffee in hand, and saw what was happening. She dropped her cup. "What are you doing?" she shouted, rushing down the ramp in a panic. Danny calmly handed her the paperwork. "This structure is being removed in compliance with county code and by request of the community. You can contact the zoning board for further details." She looked like she was about to faint. "You can't just tow our office. This is official HOA property." "Oh," I said, strolling up. "You mean like how my vehicle was my property?" Her jaw dropped when she saw me. "This was you?" I smiled. "I followed the rules. Unlike you." Neighbors started gathering. People were filming. Kids rode by on bikes, pointing and laughing as the crew began lifting the trailer off the ground, inch by inch. The building creaked and groaned like it knew its time was up. By noon, the trailer was gone, driven away like an old circus act packing up for the last time. And the best part? I didn't break a single rule. They had towed my car without following proper notice. I had their entire office towed with proper notice, backed by county law and every ounce of paperwork they loved to shove in people's mailboxes. That was the day the balance shifted. The day the HOA realized they weren't the only ones who knew how to play dirty while staying clean. And trust me, I wasn't done yet. The trailer was gone, hauled away like last week's garbage. But what I didn't expect, what nobody expected, was what would happen after the tow. At first, I thought that would be the end of it. I imagined a few angry emails, maybe a board meeting with Cheryl dramatically waving her arms around while yelling about community integrity. Then they'd get over it, right? Nope. I underestimated two things: how petty the HOA board really was, and how much support I was about to get from the neighborhood. Within hours of the trailer being towed, people started showing up at my door. At first, I thought it was going to be neighbors yelling at me for stirring up trouble. Instead, they were thanking me. Seriously. People I'd barely spoken to, moms pushing strollers, retired vets with coffee mugs, even the high school kid down the street, were stopping by just to shake my hand or give me a thumbs up. One guy, Mr. Morales, who lived 2 blocks over, leaned in and said, "You're a hero, man. I've been getting fined for years over stupid stuff. One time they fined me for my wind chimes." Wind chimes! Another lady named Denise told me the HOA had been harassing her about the color of her mulch. Her mulch. I didn't even know mulch came in different colors, let alone ones you could get fined for. Apparently, people had been quietly suffering under the HOA's rule for years, just too afraid or tired to push back. Me towing their precious trailer? That was the shot heard round the cul-de-sac. But while the neighborhood was cheering, the HOA board, they were panicking. The next day, they held an emergency town hall meeting in the community pool house. I wasn't even planning on going, but about 10 different neighbors texted me saying, "You have to be there." So I went. And oh man, I wish I'd brought popcorn. The place was packed. Folding chairs everywhere, people standing shoulder to shoulder, and Cheryl right up front looking like she hadn't slept in 24 hours. The moment I walked in, half the room turned and clapped. Clapped. Like I was a celebrity or something. I gave a little wave, trying not to smile too wide, and took a seat near the back. Cheryl took the mic. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. As many of you know, the HOA's administrative trailer was unlawfully removed from community grounds." "Lawfully," I called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "With full county permits. I've got copies if anyone wants one." That got a laugh from the crowd. Cheryl's eye twitched. This reckless action has jeopardized our ability to operate effectively. She continued, ignoring me, and created a hostile environment. Hostile? Lady, your group literally towed my car because you didn't like the way it looked. But here's where things got crazy. As she kept ranting, another neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, a quiet, retired guy with a war vet hat and a stare that could freeze lava, stood up. I'd like to motion for a full re-election of the HOA board, he said loud and clear. Effective immediately. The room went dead silent. Cheryl blinked. Excuse me? I've lived here for 17 years, Jenkins said. And I've watched this board get worse every single year. You bully homeowners, bend rules, and fine people for things that don't even make sense. What happened with the SUV? That was the last straw. We need new leadership. People started murmuring. A few clapped. Someone even shouted. Seconded. Cheryl turned red. This meeting is not for board motions. Yes, it is, Denise interrupted. It's a public town hall. According to the bylaws. She pulled out a printed packet, bless her soul. Any homeowner can motion for a vote at an open meeting if quorum is met. And judging by the head count? We've got quorum. I nearly fell out of my chair. They were actually doing it. Then someone passed around a clipboard. And another. Within minutes, people were signing their names, calling for a vote to dissolve the current board and hold special elections. Cheryl tried to shut it down. She shouted about due process and illegitimate procedures. But no one was listening anymore. The crowd had flipped. That's when I realized, towing their office wasn't just payback. It was a spark. But there was one more thing that happened that night, something I'll never forget. As I left the meeting, smiling, exhausted, maybe a little overwhelmed, someone approached me from the side of the lot. It was a guy in a gray hoodie, maybe late 20s, someone I'd never seen before. You're the SUV guy, right? He asked. Yeah, I said, bracing for who knows what. He looked around, then pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was a screenshot of Cheryl's email. A private one. In it, she was giving explicit instructions to tow my car before the 72-hour period expired. She even admitted it was a gray area legally, but worth the message it sends. I stared at it, speechless. Where did you get this? I asked. I used to work IT for the HOA, he said. Saw a lot of shady stuff. I couldn't say anything before, but now? People are finally standing up. He sent me the email. I saved it in 3 different places. That right there? That was evidence. Concrete, digital, and damning. The HOA hadn't just broken their own rules. They knew they were breaking them. And now I had proof. After that town hall meeting, things changed fast. Like really fast. Within a week, the HOA board was in full meltdown mode. Emails were flying. Neighbors were organizing. The petition for a re-election had more than enough signatures, and thanks to Denise, our new local hero, everything was legally airtight. She even got a lawyer involved to ensure the vote couldn't be accidentally delayed, or mysteriously invalidated, you know, the usual tricks Cheryl liked to pull. And let me tell you, Cheryl? She was spiraling. She went from strutting around the neighborhood like she owned it to barely leaving her house. When she did come out, it was in sunglasses, head down, muttering things under her breath like, "This place is falling apart." But the truth was, the neighborhood had never felt more alive. People were outside talking again. Kids were riding bikes without getting scolded for being too loud. Someone even painted a mural on their backyard fence facing the walking trail, something the HOA would have definitely banned before, and instead of getting fined, they got compliments. The whole vibe had flipped. And all because I decided to fight back. Now don't get me wrong, I didn't turn into some kind of local politician. I wasn't running for a board seat or trying to be the new king of the cul-de-sac. I just wanted people to know they didn't have to roll over every time the HOA barked. But then came the real cherry on top. Remember that leaked email? The one the former IT guy gave me? Yeah, that thing turned out to be gold. At first, I wasn't sure what to do with it. I mean, I could have just posted it online or sent it to the HOA's mailing list and watched the world burn. But I wanted it to actually mean something. So I brought it to the lawyer Denise had been working with. He read it and immediately said, "We're filing a formal complaint." See, Cheryl had not only violated the HOA's own bylaws, but she had documented it, in writing, and encouraged others to follow suit. That wasn't just unethical, it was actionable. Within days, the complaint was filed with the county's HOA Oversight Board. And within 2 weeks, Cheryl resigned. No dramatic announcement. No "Farewell to my beloved community" speech. She just left. Sent out a short email saying she was stepping down for personal reasons. Then she vanished. I heard she moved in with her sister in a different neighborhood across town. One without an HOA. The irony? Chef's kiss. After Cheryl left, 2 other board members followed. One of them tried to pretend it was because of family obligations. But let's be real, they saw the writing on the wall. The whole system they built on fear and fines was collapsing. The special election happened soon after. For the first time ever, more than 80% of homeowners actually voted. That's unheard of in HOA communities. And the new board? Made up of real people, neighbors who listened, who cared about the community without acting like overlords. And me? I didn't run for anything. I didn't need to. I had made my point. But something wild started happening after all this went down. People started reaching out from other neighborhoods. I got messages through Facebook, Instagram, even a handwritten letter on my doorstep, all from people who heard about the guy who towed the HOA's office. Some of them asked for advice. Others just wanted to tell me their horror stories. Lawns getting mowed 2 hours late and getting fined, garden gnomes being declared violations. Even one guy who got threatened for painting his garage door too beige. It made me realize, this wasn't just about me. This wasn't just one SUV getting towed. It was a symptom of something way bigger. A power structure that had gone unchecked for way too long. That's when I decided to start something new. Nothing fancy, just a simple website and a YouTube channel where I could share my story and help others stand up to ridiculous HOAs. I called it HOA Justice. Catchy, right? The first video was just me telling my story. Raw, straight to the point. Within a week, it had over 50,000 views. I started posting more stories from other people. Tips on how to read your HOA's bylaws, how to legally challenge unfair fines, and yes, how to legally tow a building if you really, really need to. People started sending me their own clips, pictures, screenshots of HOA madness happening across the country. The channel grew fast. But more importantly, it became a community. A place where people could finally say, "This happened to me too, and I thought I was alone." And it all started with one SUV. One stupid, dusty, slightly dented SUV sitting in a driveway that didn't fit someone else's idea of aesthetic standards. Sometimes I think back to that day I came home and found my car gone. How small and powerless I felt. How they expected me to just accept it. But I didn't. I fought back. And now? Now the whole neighborhood's talking.